But thank you for joining us. My name is Derek Taylor with T3 Sixty, and I'm here with my co-host Katie Schatz from our organized real estate division. And with us today is Curtis Sicalo, the CEO and founder of VoiceFlip, and Artie, and Jim Yockel from the Greater Rochester Association of Realtors. So excited to have you guys on this with us today. We wanted to talk about just a quick kind of white paper study that we did about Artie and the implementation of AI into the Greater Rochester Association of Realtors in a very limited space and time, and we'll kind of go over that in a minute. But before that, I really wanted to frame kind of where we're headed and why this is important in our industry today. Our industry is really going under some significant transformation. You see a lot of M&A happening, you see a lot of changes around regulation, and it's a lot of things that everyone's noticing is in the news all the time. In the addition to that, the role of organized real estate is evolving, and associations and MLSs are needing to adapt to the change, this changing landscape. In addition to that, we're able to provide some high values. They're able to provide some high value services to drive additional membership value and to enhance member efficiency as well. Katie, I'll let you take this for a second, and I'll be right back with you. But Jim, before I leave, are you starting to see that the industry is changing a little bit, and do you feel like your members are experiencing more out of you or wanting more out of you and your association?
Yeah, that's the understatement of the day. We're changing a little bit. It's all around us. It's everywhere. It has been for a bunch of years, and we have decided, if we're going to survive, we have to be the number one resource. Obviously agents rely on their broker, but outside their broker, we want to be a business critical resource. So we have to think differently about what we provide that is a critical support tool, and Artie's a big piece of that.
And we're seeing that in the polling that we do for the organized real estate division, the surveys that we do for associations and MLSs, with the sentiment from the NAR settlement and all that good stuff that happened last year. Members are on edge and struggling with their own businesses, right? And we know when things get pinchy with their business, it sometimes is reflected upon their membership or subscription with the MLS. And so we're seeing that a lot in our surveys, that members are saying, I don't know what I get for my money, and my dues are too high. And now more than ever in this climate, that's becoming a real pain point for members. So
yeah, and specifically in Rochester, we have one of, if not the tightest inventory housing markets in the country, and have for many years. Realtor.com, every month I get something, you're in the top 5 of this, the top 10 of that, and they're not good lists. You want to be top 5 and top 10 in. So our agents have been struggling with a super tight market for a long time, and that frustration. How many times can you lose out to 17 other offers with your buyers before frustration seeps in? So we have to be there to still support them in a really tough time where they're always on edge, and that's hard. It's hard for them. So again, we're trying to do different things to fill that gap.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much for that. So one of the things that you were able to do to kind of drive additional value to your agents was to work with Curtis and implement Artie for your organization. Curtis, can you tell us a little bit about Artie and what it does and how it works?
So Artie is essentially just a member Artie is a member support AI tool for associations, MLSs, specific for them. So the way it works is we basically take an association's entire data set, or whatever data they want to give us. If they want to restrict it, they can. If they want to give us their entire data set, they can. Train a specific model on it for them, and then let their members answer or ask questions through text message, phone, web, Facebook Messenger, and WhatsApp. So it's a multi-channel solution. And more important, I think, than multi-channel, it's also multilingual. So it speaks 25 languages, even though your data is going to only be in English, obviously. We can answer questions in, Cantonese, Mandarin, Farsi, whatever you got. We can support your members who speak, a different mother tongue than English.
That's amazing. So we're kind of going back and reframing this, and we've recently released what's called the Real Estate Opportunity Report. So about 10 years ago, we released what was called the Danger Report that showed we felt some things coming to our industry that offered some danger to it. And of that, I believe we were about 85 to 86% correct in our predictions. And we wanted to release kind of a new version of that called the Opportunity Report. But to put things into context, the Opportunity Report, and if you guys would like, there's a QR code to download it, or you can go to theopportunityreport.com to get a copy of it as well. We also put that inside of the chat. But one of the things that we've noticed and highlighted in the Opportunity Report was that MLSs and associations should expand their role, become curators of comprehensive property data, and equipping agents with consumer-friendly tools. So one of the things that Jim is doing, and this is kind of an offshoot of that, is they're creating their members with really friendly tools to get information about the association. And Artie's been a really big part of that. In addition, our Opportunity Report also highlighted to remain relevant, MLSs and associations should be fully enabled to develop strategies that address market demands and competitive innovation. Again, providing more value to their member base in ways that may be different. And one of those ways we found is AI. So AI is among one of the most transformative technologies ever introduced into residential real estate, providing potentially serving as one of the most amazing catalysts to fully digitize the real estate process, but not just the real estate transaction, but also the process of member and association relationships. So the challenge here was, making real estate associations indispensable through service and not mandates. And with that, Jim, you guys introduced Artie, and then not long after that, you had Christmas break, and I believe you give some of your staff members some time off during that period.
Yeah, it was great.
How many days off did they get, and what would normally have happened with a member outreach during that time?
We would normally be, Christmas this year was in the middle of the week. So normally we would have been closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and probably let people who want come in on the 26th. Normally we're very low staffed and most people take vacation. But we decided to experiment a little bit. Already had been running for over a month and doing a good job, almost 2 months. And so we said, you know what, we're going to partially force our members to engage with Artie. We're just going to close the entire week and we're going to direct all the phone calls to Artie and see what happens. And I had, staff checking every couple hours just to make sure there's no emergencies. They could still leave a message and all that. But it went flawlessly. No issues with the technology. We talk more about when Artie doesn't know something, how that works, but worked flawlessly. Had good interaction. It's a slow week for us. It's cold in Rochester, New York in the middle of December, so not a lot of real estate activity, but we still need to be here for the questions members have, and Artie handled them all.
So Jim, during that time, is staff able to access Artie remotely, like to see usage or anything like that?
Yes and no. We have a dashboard that most of the staff doesn't check it every day. Curtis checks it, I check it, our director of innovation checks it just to kind of see what we're tracking. But in a day-to-day member interaction, if they would have called, they would have gotten Artie, they would ask their question. If Artie says, I'm sorry, I can't answer that, they can leave a message for a staff member checks their voicemail, and then we can get back to them. So nobody was kind of left out.
Gotcha.
It was just trying to divert the calls as many as we could to give people a couple extra days off. Obviously last year was a little stressful. I had a lot going on in the industry, and I thought,
Yeah.
you know what, let's give everybody the whole week and just recharge.
So it's really like triaging the calls that you probably get the most frequently and the most commonly asked questions, and a lot more than that, obviously. And as it learns and you train it more and feed it more, it becomes better and smarter. But I'm sure, we all get at associations and MLSs probably the same like 10 questions very, very, very frequently. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that's a great for, like I said, just kind of triaging those and saving staff some time for that.
Yeah, I think triage is a good example because there's not only just the simple repetitive questions, and the end of last year was the code of ethics cycle ending. So dozens
Yes.
of calls a day about, did I do this? When's the next class? And we don't need to answer that. That's something Artie can
Mhm.
easily answer, and it lets our staff focus on the complicated problems. But also, it's amazing how many people will call the main number and say, "Can I speak to so and so?" And they just do a lot of transfers. So having Artie diverting some of the questions allowed us to reintroduce an auto attendant with just a couple of options. So do you want to ask Artie, do you want to go to a specific staff person? Do you have a specific question? And that provides a little extra time for staff too. We were operating under the idea that every call should be answered live, but it's become inefficient. And now we have a better tool for that first bit of triage. And RD is not at all intended to replace staff. And I had to explain that, in detail to people we have on staff. Like, this is not intended to get rid of you. This is to empower you to do better things for the members, spend your time on more high value efforts, and we can talk about what some of them are, but to save you from answering the same question over and over and over, because we have 3,000 members and half of them still had to do their ethics. So we don't need you to tell people the next class is on Thursday. Here's how you sign up. Already
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah, that's a great case study example, just that one alone, because we all go through that every 3 years of have I done it? When's the next class?
Yeah.
I'm a realtor emeritus, so I have to do it, all those fun questions. So that's great.
Yeah, so we looked at the data that you were able to generate, or the actual usage of the service during that specific period of time, and have found that just during that period of time, it handled, I think, a period of what, 3, 4 days, 5 days, 164 phone calls, 33 text messages. It engaged 66 total users, gave the staff 273 additional days of paid time off, and handled over 1,000 member inquiries within that first month.
And it
All of
doesn't
that
sound
being
like a
said,
lot.
yeah,
Yeah,
go
it
ahead.
doesn't sound like a lot, but remember, we're a medium-sized association. We have 3,000 people, so already engaged with 10% of our members in the week of Christmas, and handled it all. So it's, it is what it is. That's slow time, but it proved what we wanted it to prove.
What I found amazing is that 2 years ago when I started speaking on AI, the public perception of artificial intelligence was that most of the public actually trusted it and felt like it was going to do some amazing things for them. And it did. We did a lot of kind of generative AI at the time, and we're moving away from kind of content creation into actually actions, where AI is taking action for us. And all of a sudden, consumer sentiment on trust for AI has gone way down. What I find amazing is that you were able, during a critical part of, your year, to turn on an AI power tool that takes action, and to feel like you could trust it to run the store, right? While you're away, basically. So based upon all those key results, what was a satisfaction for people using the system?
We don't hear any complaints. I have occasionally someone will say, "Hey, I asked it this, it couldn't answer it." And in our promotion, right from the beginning, we said, "Listen, this is an AI tool. It's brand new. We're building the database. There's a lot already won't know because we haven't told it yet. It's not because it's broken. It's not because it doesn't work. It's because we haven't told it yet. And we're intentionally starting with a limited data set so we can test it like crazy." Our staff checked many, many times different ways of saying things before we launched. And now we've been adding more information to it. And once we got past launch and everything went smoothly, every data set we've added to it has been really smooth. And we've had a couple of complicated, very elaborate spreadsheets of information that I can explain. But there's always a little tweak in the testing, and then once it goes, it's good and it works. So the trust has come from a lot of testing. We're fairly risk averse. The worst thing in my mind would be to put something out that gave the wrong answers to our members, and then they act on it. Something goes wrong, and now they're mad at us rather than pleased with what we're doing. So that's been our approach, and it's gone really smooth.
That word
How
risk
many
averse, or
engagements?
those
Oh,
words, I just wrote that down in my notes as a question to ask you, but I'll jump in now because I do think that's something we see, and that's another thing that we pull on and include in our surveys is how risk averse the leadership is and the staff is. And I know that can be a big hurdle that people are just afraid of it. And so something else I love about your story is that you just did it. And I think that's what you got to do sometimes is just start, right? You
Yep.
just got to start and try it and do, and then tinker from there. But this is a great product too, or a tool. All AI is that it's hopefully not going to break things too badly. I mean, it's like it's a thing to be risk averse about, but only I think to a certain degree because you're feeding it information. It's, using that to answer questions. If it totally gets it wrong or it's confusing, the members will, they'll let us know. So I think
Yeah,
that's great that you guys went for it.
it's a weird combination of risk averse at the beginning, making sure it's tested well and really functioning, and then really brave to just throw it out there and let it go.
Yep.
And so we like to make sure we do all our due diligence on the front end, and then we've got to be bold and put new things out and make ourselves indispensable. You had that on your slide. I couldn't agree
Yep.
more. We have to be working towards creating, being the indispensable resource, because if people don't see that, then they have other options, and this is a big step. So we have to be brave. We have to move into the future, but that all comes from trust in Curtis, and spending time with him and talking through the concept and picking it apart. And Brandon, our director of innovation, was a key part of this from three different angles, approaching it and figuring out where the little blips might be and fixing them up front. But that's, having trusted partners who are experts in their field is the key, and that allows me to be brave.
Yeah, and that's great. I love that you talked about your vetting process as well. And you're lucky to have someone internally who's a little subject matter expert on that. Not everyone has that, I don't think, but if not, I'm sure there's people they could tap on the shoulder to help them with that. But obviously, really important to vet something like this that's new, so new to all of us, and that we are a little risk averse to at first, maybe. So, in that process and vetting it, how hard was it to get your leadership to come along?
They were a little nervous. We have a lot of trust there. We've done some cool things together, and so they have trust in me, and I have trust in them. But this is a different beast altogether, where we're kind of putting our member experience on the line for an AI tool. So again, it was getting them comfortable, me being comfortable with Curtis, Brandon being comfortable with Curtis and what he built. Their trust in us allowed us to get over the hump. And I'm glad it went well, because if it didn't, that would have been a different environment. But I knew we'd get there, and we've been working together for 6 or 7 years on getting our leadership to the point where they are actively looking for ways to be ahead of the curve and to invest in their future and to build these new things. And there's other stuff we're doing that is kind of cool and outside of the norm for a small, medium-sized association. But they understand that if we don't, then we're not becoming indispensable or remaining indispensable to our members. And that's beginning of the slow decline, and we're not doing that.
Curtis, you've built this to share institutional knowledge at scale. And I would say with that came some pretty interesting technical challenges. Can you share some of the main technical challenges that your team was solving when creating RD for the real estate industry?
Yeah, so we based already on our core tech, which is basically the ability to ingest any data and make usable natural language of voice, 25 languages. Um, you know, which great technology, blah, blah, blah. But then we started experimenting with Rochester, and building Artie out, and we realized we don't have access to a lot of the data that's available in all these systems in real estate. So one of the big technical challenges was trying to get information out of older legacy systems, which proved much more difficult than we thought. Luckily, Brandon over at the Director of Innovation over at Rochester is a very smart guy. So he helped us over a lot of those hurdles, whether it's, automated exports. We built some AI agents to actually go into their systems and maybe grab some information if we need to, things like that. That was probably the biggest unexpected hurdle that we encountered. Yeah, I mean, other than that, it's the core tech was already there to process PDFs, Word documents, Excel sheets, JSON files, APIs, everything like that. So that part was easy. It was just the older systems getting access to the information.
I've heard there's been, and Sarah Fogg put a question here, which I find awesome. She heard a rumor that Jim added in some Easter eggs and recipes into Artie to engage its members. Jim, is that true?
It is. We wanted to make it fun, so we put in a few Easter eggs. I think Brandon did the recipe when he was testing it. He wanted to ask a question he knew Artie couldn't answer, so he said, "Do you have a recipe for banana bread?" And she says, "No, I'm sorry, I don't have that information." So he entered one, and then he said, "Do you have a recipe for banana bread?" And she said, "Yeah," or maybe it was something else, but it was a recipe. So we're working on a bunch of little Easter eggs, and then those become part of our marketing. So we can have our board president put a top 10 list of his favorite restaurants in Rochester, and then we can put in our promotional material. Hey, ask Artie what Don's top 10 favorite restaurants are. And it gives people a reason to go there. And once they go there, then they go, what else can I ask? And now they're engaging with it and they're learning and they're getting comfortable with it. And a really good example, when Starbucks first started doing the mobile ordering, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't use it because it just seemed weird and I didn't want to do it. And finally they said, they sent me a thing in the app that said, get a free drink if you use the mobile order. And I go, okay, I'll get a free drink. And it was awesome. And then never went in the store again. So but we're human and we do things like that for no reason. It was dumb, but that's what I was doing. So we have to give people a reason to try it. And who knows what it is. So my kids are doing top 10 lists for me and we're going to put them in. So, my daughter's top 10 favorite Taylor Swift songs. One person may want to know what Harper's favorite song is. They'll ask. And then now they're using Artie. So you've got to meet people where they're comfortable. And I think that's getting over the hurdle.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so glad that came up too, because that was another question I had is, as a former comm director, how do you communicate to your members this new thing that you have, because it's all about getting them to use it, right? And so how have you promoted it to the members and gotten them to adopt it? And that's a great example. It's fabulous. I love that. What else have you done?
It's honestly, sorry, can I just answer? It's been Jim's engagement has been working extremely well. On average, the members who use Artie at Rochester, I looked it up just before our call here, use it 8.74 times a month. So users that use it, it's mostly through text messaging. They love it. They use it all the time. So,
yeah. And our approach is I'm a consumer of things too. And so every decision I make here, I run through my, consumer viewpoint. And what I do this as a consumer of some other service. And if it's something new, I remember the things that kept me from trying new things. So we put out a regular communication. Here's what you can do in Artie. Did you know you could ask Artie this thing? So one of the examples of a super complicated spreadsheet, one of our staff about 12 years ago put together a list of every for sale sign regulation by town in our 13 county service area. And so it's just this massive spreadsheet. So we entered it into Artie and we made sure it worked. And now anywhere in our service area, you can text in what's the for sale sign regulation in the town of Geneva, and it will come back with, it less than 6 square feet. It can't be lighted. It has to be more than 2 feet from the sidewalk, blah, blah, blah. So when that's in, we tell all our members through our channels, did you know you can ask Artie this? And they go, oh. And then, did you know we had just entered property tax rates and school tax rates for 9 counties? Did you know you could do this? Artie can now answer short-term rental regulations by town. And so just keep reminding them of new things that are interesting and that they may want to try. And yesterday, one of our staff sent me a note. a longtime volunteer sent her an email and said, hey, I wanted to list a property as both commercial and or residential and land or something. So I asked Artie, and Artie told me how to do it. So that's really cool. And I hope you'll send me an invoice for this extra listing fee. And it's just people are interacting with us differently now that they're getting over the hump of using the tool. Now they're thinking of all the cool ways they can use it.
So I noticed that when I asked Curtis kind of about the onboarding experience, like what's the onboarding experience to get all of this amazing institutional knowledge into the platform, and Curtis, typical Curtis fashion, he's like, oh yeah, no, it's not hard, it's easy. And you know, the ability for him to kind of stay calm through that entire process is amazing to me. But from what I understand, it was easy. It is simple to get that information in there if it's structured in the right way. Did you run into some situations where you found that the onboarding process was easy, but maybe you weren't quite ready for the data upload yet?
Yeah, I think and I've said this to many other people who are asked about it, it's the quality of what we already have is the key thing. The once you put it in, you know, Artie's got it. The technology is solid, but if you put in 3 different PDFs that have conflicting information, then it's going to cause problem. But that's our problem. That's not Artie's problem. So we went through and made sure we cleaned up all of our stuff. We got rid of old documents. It was a really great exercise just to get rid of old things. There's so much on your website that is outdated that you don't even know is there. We said, okay, we're not going to let it scan our whole website and deal with that. We're going to tell it what pages are updated, and it can go read these pages, and then we'll clean up stuff on the back end. So it was actually a great exercise to update all of our PDFs, all of our resources. But the magic of Artie is once you're comfortable with the resource, you just put it in, and Artie does all the rest.
A quick nuts and bolts question about that for our people out here in the audience. Just like when you're uploading things, how do you do that? If you just put in a web page, if it's a Word doc, do you have to copy and paste it, or can you upload a Word doc? I heard Curtis say earlier, PDFs, all these different things. Tell the people about all the ways they can upload information, how the ease of that, or what you might have had struggles with.
Yeah, so one of our goals when building the product is to make everything as easy as possible from using the product for members. Obviously, that's why it's, you know, using the 5 channels, but also from an association point of view. So we can either scan your website, because we have some really advanced AI agents that go scan websites, get all the information, grab the PDFs from it, all that fun stuff. Or you just drag and drop your files into a Dropbox. Grab files, bring them over, and they're loaded into the system. That is pretty much it. So like really anyone can do it.
Yeah, so if it's a web page with like a PDF linked, it would read that and grab whatever's in the PDF.
It will, yeah. And then, you know, if someone asks a question about that specific PDF, we can actually like link back to that on the response too. So, hey, like, you know, I need to write a CMA. You have a PDF on your website about how to write CMA. Well, here's how to write it, but also if you want the full PDF, click here and, you know, have at it.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So Jim, how can associations find the right balance between AI automation and keeping this personal touch that members value?
That's the challenge. I was at a conference a long time ago. I wrote this note, and it always sticks with me. When people want technology, they get frustrated by humans, and when people want humans, they get frustrated by technology. And we have to walk that line. I said before, this is not intended to replace people. It's intended to let our people work on higher value, new resources that are going to help our members. So we've landed on right now, and it could change. We put in the auto attendant, and you have 3 or 4 choices. One is Artie, one is hit 0 and get a person right now. And we're going to try and let them select, do I want to deal with technology or do I want to deal with people? And it could change from call to call depending on what they're calling about. So having this tool available lets somebody who only wants to text message with GRAR, they can get everything we have through text messaging. And I'm completely happy with that. If someone wants to use the phone, they can do it through the phone. If someone only wants to use Facebook, they can use Facebook Messenger now. We're really trying to meet them where they want to be and provide the same level of service and the same access to information. And, you know, we'll see where it goes from there. the first evolution has been from getting all of our kind of low-level administrative resources, how to take classes, policies and procedures in. Now we're adding things like the short-term rental regulations database, everything that's in our continuing education course curriculum is being entered into RD. So you can get answers to things that are within a class, even if you've never taken the class. So the phase 2 is, what does an agent need out in the field in the moment? And can we empower RD to provide that for them so they look like a genius in front of their clients? And so we have a lot of lake property. Imagine you're out showing a lake property and the buyer says, hey, could I Airbnb this? This is a really great location. The agent can text RD, what are the short-term rental regulations in this town? And in 5 seconds, they have the answer. And they say, yeah, up to 30 nights a week. There's a registry. You have to pay a $100 fee, whatever. But they have access to the information instantly where it's available. And so there are probably 100 other data sets that we can provide that add to that. But our job is to make our members look great in front of their customers. And if we do that, then we become indispensable. Why would you not want to be part of an organization that's going to make you look like a genius?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep.
What was the path to that information before, versus text or whatever? How would they have found it through your organization previously?
They wouldn't have found it through our organization. You'd have to go to the town's website, dig through all of their stuff, see if things are there. So this is where it all comes together. We have a government affairs rep whose job is to find these things. And he started telling us 18 months ago, lots of towns are talking about limiting short-term rentals. We need to pay attention to this. So we have, and we started building a spreadsheet of who actually approved something. And so then when we launched RD, we said, hey, we can put this in to the extent it exists. It's not, every town doesn't have it, so it's not complete, but it's the most complete information that's available. And no other source that I know of has that for our region. So we become indispensable again.
So at some point you might have done a webinar or a coffee, meeting where they could have got that information at one time, but now it's available to them 24/7, multi-channel, different ways and easy to access. That's amazing.
And we tend to skip over the multilingual, and I think that's huge. I had a conversation with one of my peers who said, they have a large office, who only spoke Mandarin and was frustrated that they don't get the support from the association because nothing is in Mandarin. And I said, well, with RD, you have everything in Mandarin in a matter of weeks. Everything you do is instantly in 25 languages. And we're not I don't know what maybe Curtis knows, the multilingual use. We're not a huge metropolitan city, but think of the big cities where language is an important thing. The value proposition to go from we only deal in English to we deal in 25 languages is, I can't even comprehend how happy I would be if I was a broker in a non-English speaking. All of a sudden now all of my association resources are available to me. That's huge.
Absolutely.
I mean, talk about showing member value and how much you truly care about them. That's amazing. It's very personal.
Yep.
So Curtis, you've built this tool to be used in multiple different ways. What different channels is already available in right now so that other companies could leverage them in, it's text message, phone call, Facebook Messenger now, WhatsApp,
and and the web interface. We're adding Instagram. We'll be doing a couple integrations with real estate specific communication channels. I'm not sure if we can mention them yet on the webinar, but those should be coming in the next month or so. And we're always looking for new ones. We had a request for TikTok the other day from one of our clients. Or explore. I don't have TikTok, so I wasn't even sure you could message on TikTok. I didn't know that was a thing, but we're looking at different ways. The more communication channels, the better. If someone has a CB radio endpoint that we could connect to, I would gladly connect to that. If one
What about a
realtor out in the
BlackBerry?
middle of nowhere, yeah, wow, come on now.
I think I have one still somewhere.
Not go crazy.
Yeah, BlackBerry
I'm
messaging.
sure you do, Derek. So Jim was saying earlier, talking about meeting the members where they are and how they want to be communicated with and all of that stuff. And that's so important as well. And it's, I always think about the teacher presents itself when the student is ready. I love that quote that we all want to say we like technology or we want to try AI, but you don't really care until you do. And then you're like, now I really want it and I want it right now. So once they decide they're ready, or they decide they do need to know the sign ordinance in whatever town or municipality, then that information is ready for them when they need it. And it's instant. And it could be after hours or on a weekend, which I know I always heard from my members in every, survey that we would do in Memphis, like, oh gosh, we wish we had after hour support or weekend support. And it's so hard to do that and justify the staff to do it and open the office and the whole thing. But if you have something like Artie, that's just a brilliant solution for it. But something else you talked about made me think of another question, which is, you said that they can decide when they go through the voice prompts on the phone when they call to talk to a person or choose Artie. If they choose Artie and they get into Artie and then decide they want to talk to a human, can they go back?
Yeah, they just say, I want to talk to a person, and sends them back.
Cool.
And I love that quote too. I heard that just the other day, and it's exactly where we are. About a year ago, maybe a year and a half, I was at a luncheon with some members, and we were talking about AI just at our table. And, two of these very productive agents, like, AI, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
I don't need somebody to write my property descriptions for me. They were really frustrated. So this was before we launched Artie. And I just said, think about it differently. That's not the only use for AI. I'd been using an AI note taker that lots of people use now. And I said, I was just in an hour-long meeting, and I turned on my AI note taker, and I pulled out my phone and I showed him this is what the output was. It was perfectly organized notes of a meeting that went all over the place. I said, this tool let me pay attention to the meeting without having to scramble. I would have never made notes as good as this, and I would have missed half of the meeting because I was trying to take good notes. This is, kind of what I think is really productive right now. And it changed their whole mind. They went, whoa, two of them downloaded it right there. But we knew we were starting to talk about Artie. We knew there was more. And so the whole point was, you have to think beyond the easiest case. If all we do in this industry is use AI to write property descriptions or to scan photos, we're missing the point. There's so much more productivity that's available for agents, for staff, for everybody. But we have to think about what it can be. And one of the things I like best about Artie is now that we have people asking lots of questions, they ask things and Artie doesn't have the answer. We get a report. Curtis sends us a report of everything that Artie can't answer. And our staff looks at it and they say, should we be able to answer this one? If the answer is yes, they create a resource or find a link or whatever. And it goes in. And since we're still new, we have them email the person who asked and say, you asked this, Artie couldn't answer it. We built the resource. Now it's in there. So Artie is being built by our members based on what they ask it in real time. In a matter of days, that answer's there. And that's really powerful.
And that's huge. I mean, we all talk about member engagement. That comes up all the time. And like, especially now, and I mean, what does that even mean? Like, it's different, I think, for different people, but not only like the increase in member satisfaction, but a lot of the members who call, I feel like, are ones that you may never ever see in the office. You may never see them at an event. And so that touch point and getting them what they need when they need it, or like, we couldn't get it for you, but look, we know that we couldn't. Like, first of all, we know that we couldn't. We're aware of that. That's how good we are. And we found a way to do it, and we wanted to thank you. I mean, that's incredible. That's very cool.
So one of the questions that we have in the queue is from an anonymous attendee asking if the system may be able to do outgoing notifications as well as kind of incoming calls. I'll let you take that.
Yeah, we've talked about that a couple times. We really do want it to be more of a member has to engage with it first before we engage with the member. That way it's not spammy. No one likes robot calls or robot text messages from whoever it could be. Even if you love your association, you don't want those. So it's member engages first, and we respond back. That's how we built it. That's how it's probably going to stay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think that's the right way. We're providing a tool for those who want to use it. We're not going to force it on people, but hopefully we make it so awesome that they're going to use it when they want it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And on that point, I looked at Rochester's usage for the last 30 days before joining the call. They had 1,973 usage in the last 30 conversations with Artie in the last 30 days, which is pretty good for an association with 3,500 members or so.
3,100, yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to break that down into hours, I think that's going to be like, if you were to call someone and talk to someone,
Yeah.
that'd be roughly like 400 hours of conversation that Artie handled for members. And most of that, 90% of that was after hours. So,
Yeah.
One of the things I get from a lot of companies wanting to do something around AI to help their company or their enterprise is they feel that they don't have the talent on staff to handle that. And recently it was at the HumanX AI conference. There's 4,500 people, just a really big, humongous, amazing cross-industry conference. And one of the things I picked up from there is that 95% of enterprises across North America feel like they don't have the talent necessary to implement AI solutions inside their product. For your product, Curtis, do you think that an association, Jim's lucky to have a very talented individual on his staff that can help with that, but is that necessary for your product to have someone on staff to help with that?
I mean, if you don't have someone on staff that can drag and drop a file into a Dropbox, you guys are seriously hurting. So, I mean, that's all you need to do, really, and pick a phone number, I suppose, too. There's that. But that is honestly the setup. It's white glove. We handle everything. You just drag and drop your data, um, and that is pretty much it. Like, as long as you know how to text message to test it and phone, and you're good.
Yep, I love that. Pre-built, easy to use AI solutions are our future, specifically for industries like ours where they're just not going to have somebody on staff that can do that. We can't afford the, I guess, $450,000 average income that a data scientist is making these days.
Not even close.
Yeah.
That's
So
several staff people.
that's okay. Yeah.
But I think that was part of the goal. And, lucky that we got the person we got, but intentional that we went out and I put a lot of credibility online with our board and said, we need to hire a director of innovation at a decent salary to do this thing. And our board said yes. And we went out and find someone, and we got lucky that we got the right person, and he's super smart. But we tried to create something like this, not specifically Artie, but that led to a conversation between Brandon and Curtis at a trade show, which led to a conversation with me and Brandon, and it all kind of came together. And Brandon said, hey, Curtis has this awesome tool that will get you what you need. Boom. And now we have it. But that was on purpose. We set out to do things like that. And not everybody can, which is why we love to share and we love to partner with people. And when we come up with a good idea, we put it out for everybody to know about. We're not trying to keep anything secret because we all are in this together, whether you're my association or neighbor or across the country. This industry needs to prove our value to members and to the consumers, or we're not going to make it.
I think you make another great point in what you just said too, which is you guys have been strategic. You said over this past 6 or so years, your leadership and you have made this choice to pursue technology and pursue things that you may have been risk averse to in the past, and you've been moving toward that. And maybe that's why you are here ahead of most of the rest of us, maybe, is that you started that so long ago. So it's never too late to start, but you've got to start sometime, right? Because it is a bit of a ramp up at times to get everybody in the same place at the same time. But I think the key there is that you made a strategic decision and you had leadership support for that. And so now that you've got that, you guys are moving really quickly, which is nice.
Mike Price asked, how do I become a data scientist? Mike, we can't afford to lose you in the industry, so we're not going to tell you how to do that. Sorry.
Great question.
Ask Artie. She'll tell you how to become a data scientist.
That's true.
Yeah, there you go. I have a question that probably is on other people's minds. I know with AI like Chat GPT and things like that, a lot of times people will ask, is it you know, if I upload all this stuff about my association or a project I'm working on, is it just going to be out there in the ether for anyone to see? And I know that there are enterprise accounts that you can have a login, so that doesn't happen. Your stuff stays secure. I assume with Artie, it is that way, that you have an account for like Rochester and all their stuff is in that, or how does that work?
Yeah, so each one of our clients is siloed. So we spin up a whole new system from scratch for each one of our clients. So their data is not shared with anyone else. We self-host a large language model. We're currently using Llama 3.1 as our large language model, but that's a very small portion of the transaction when you go through Artie. Um, and we are like, VoiceFlip is a data company. Like everything we do revolves on data, but we don't really care about your data. So and I mean that if you ever decide to leave, we basically delete your data right away. We don't share with anyone. We don't do any analytics on it. You know, all that fun stuff. Your data is your data. We're pretty anal about data security. Probably over anal. But it makes us a good company. It makes a good product, right? So
yeah,
everything's.
I think that's what most people want to hear.
It's the right answer. So we've got time now for questions from anyone in the audience. If you have some questions about the implementation of a product like this inside of an association, or kind of the vision that Greater Rochester has around a new model for real estate associations, we'd love to answer them. In the meantime, I'm going to share my screen again and move towards a conclusion.
I will say the setup for an association is fairly straightforward. It takes about a month. It takes us a week to get your environment spun up and for you to drag and drop your data and find your data, all that fun stuff. And then we recommend about 3 weeks of testing. So you go through, you test your data, you get your board members to text in, ask questions. They see if the data is right or wrong. You go and update that data, re-upload it to us. And then after about 3 weeks, you're ready to launch. So pretty straightforward.
And I would say that it was fascinating to see what the first couple questions were. In each group, we brought it. So our board of directors, we said, okay, it's ready for testing. Here's the number in a board meeting, and they all tested it. And it was fascinating to see where their brains go. And a couple of them, it's like, you know, when does my license expire? Like, oh, we don't have a direct link to our member database. Building that'll be ready shortly. So now I can ask about me directly into our member database. Other people, it's about classes. Other people, it's about information. Other people, it's about things that they would do in the field. So that back to that concept of the members build it based on what they want from it, it's amazing to see it happen right in front of you when they go, oh, you asked that. That's a good question. I asked this. And it was like a group therapy session. It's like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it. It was really cool. And every group we've done, it goes through that same process. It's funny.
Well, that's great too, because going back to adoption and what we talked about before, doing it together, it is sort of like therapy, because you're like, not as, if you are scared, then you have the safety net, I guess, of being with other people that you know you're not going to break it or do something weird. So I think that's a cool way to roll it out.
Yeah. And one person asked about something that is completely unrelated to real estate, and is it, this is just our data. This is not going out to the full internet. Like, oh, okay. So it's fun to do it, but it's great engagement with your membership to help them go through that process.
That's great.
So the whole idea around this is creating a new model for real estate associations that is really service-driven engagement. And Greater Rochester's initiative really exemplifies this transition towards this service-driven engagement. And they did it using AI-powered support. That part of it is really interesting part of the story. So thank you, Curtis, for joining us with this and telling the story about how you can, you know, be a tool that can be leveraged. And then also, Jim, for your ability to really take that service-driven engagement and add AI, but also human AI collaboration together into one piece is amazing. So really, really do appreciate both of your time and helping us do that and tell the story so that the industry can see it. And again, for anyone who wants more information about Artie, they can go to artie.realestate. And with that, I want to say to Jim and Katie and Curtis, do you guys have any closing comments for us?
Yeah, I'll make one. I wrote this down when Katie was talking about, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. One of the concepts we talk about all the time in our boardrooms is we constantly say we're here to serve our members, but part of serving them is leading them and getting them to go where we know they need to go, and they maybe just haven't thought about it because their nose is down trying to win business every single day in a really tough environment. So we've embraced our role as leading people into the future, sometimes kicking and screaming, but we're going to do it because that is serving them. Getting them comfortable with some new technology that's going to change their lives is leading them. I mean, I feel like it in the moment, but it will eventually. And it's not always easy, but we're going to keep doing it in every way we can.
That's great. And if you guys want a copy of the white paper, we're going to put it in the chat. So feel free to use that. We'll also include it in a follow-up email. Curtis, please share your parting thoughts with us.
No, I was just saying, Jim, Jim mentioned associations, they basically just want to serve their members. I've spoken to I don't know how many associations in the last like 6 months. And that is, it sounds cheesy, but that's what these association staff and CEOs and everything live for. They just want to make their members' lives better. And RD does that. It just, lets their members ask questions at 3 a.m. when they wake up and they're like, holy crap, I forgot about this. What do I do? Just text a question in and let that person rest their head and go back to sleep, right? Because it's not going to worry them anymore. And it seems like a small thing, but 24/7 support is amazing for people. And we've noticed that with the statistics. So yeah.
Rochester is a great example of the use of it, but do you have some other announcements that you would like to share with the rest of us around some new implementations?
Oh my. I mean,
are you able to share yet?
We've launched a couple new associations already. So Naples, Canopy, people have probably seen those. San Antonio, Toronto is our the ones we've announced so far. We have a couple more in the pipeline. We should announce like 3 or 4 more end of this month. But the other thing is our pipeline is, from a product point of view, Jim mentioned the challenges of having to sanitize their information before uploading all their data. We're addressing that because we realize it is a challenge. So we're building a conflicting information tool that'll go on top of RD. So when you upload your data, as it's being ingested, it'll tell you, hey, look, document A, B, and C all have conflicting information.
Wow.
Go fix that right now. Or we can fix on the fly, like which one's right, and we'll update the documents for you. So that's coming. It should be up in the next few months. Then there's a bunch of other cool tools and other implementations, but I'll leave those until the press releases go live.
That's amazing. Katie, do you have some parting ideas for us?
Yeah, I was trying to do an emoji and I accidentally did the raise the hand. So, I mean, here I am on a tech webinar and I can't use Zoom correctly, but just consider it a high five, Jim, because when you were saying that in serving our members, part of our role is to lead them. And I just love that. It is something that was a huge part of the opportunity report. And also the other thing in the opportunity report that I really loved was this sense of urgency. And I think we all feel that. And it's already been almost a year, since all this stuff came down. And so time is flying by. So again, I implore everyone to have that share the sense of urgency with everything you do, that we've got to really move fast to be better and to evolve and not do the things we've done in the past, which I think is largely be afraid, make fear-based decisions, and sit in our hands and wait for other people to do it. So that's my call to action.
Cool. No, love it.
Yeah, it's time that we move past ideas and actually into implementation with AI. And Curtis, you built an amazing product here. Jim, you've leveraged it in a way that really sets a high bar for the rest of the industry. So thank you both for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was
Thank
great.
y'all. Well done.
Cheers, everybody, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, guys.